Let me just start off by saying welcome to the Resetter podcast. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Hey, we're just excited to talk to you.
Thanks for having us, Mindy.
Thank you.
Of
so
course.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, agreed. Here's where I want to start off this conversation. And I don't know if you actually know this about me, but I have gone through the cancer journey intensively with 4 of my patients, and actually sat at their bedside days before they died. Wow. And it really moved me. I learned a lot. One woman in particular, her name is Lanny. My first book was completely dedicated to her. And she taught me so much because she was given a cancer diagnosis or a prognosis where they gave her 3 months to live, and she turned it into 11 years. And I learned so much walking that journey with her. So I want to start off with a couple of really interesting thoughts that I gained from that experience. And one is cancer preventable? Can we actually prevent it from happening?
And I'll let you all take it.
Yeah, that's it. That's a big question. I'm just going to let you all take that because it's one I asked that whole 11 years. I just really wanted to grab my head around that concept. Can we prevent it?
I think that's so important to ask. And honestly, more research needs to be done. But the one thing that I've been convinced of the course of our production and my personal studying is that your DNA is not your destiny. So regardless of what your cancer genes say, maybe you have a BRCA mutation or P152 mutation, that doesn't mean you're going to get cancer. Your epigenetics, your lifestyle, that's what really makes the difference. There are certain genetic mutations, very, very small percentage of people have them that do lead to cancer, usually not terminal. But I think that you sum up what we need to focus on in the future is, can it be completely prevented? Once we understand the cause fully, that's going to lead to those interventions.
Of cancers, 5% about are hereditary. And if you have one of the BRCA gene, that's one of the most
commonly known.
common genes that cause cancer. You have about a 50-50 chance, and that's of that gene going bad.
I do want to emphasize on BRCA though. It used to be a 40% chance, 70 years ago with a different diet, different lifestyle. And now it's up to 70% of people. And that's not because the gene changes, but it has a lot to do with the environment that we live in.
Yeah. So your genes, basically only 5% of people have this, of cancers even. So that's 2.5% of people have a chance of inheriting a cancer. So is cancer preventable? If the 95% of cancers come from diet and lifestyle, I would think so.
So I know that you've gotten really into fasting, which is amazing. I had a beautiful conversation yesterday with Dr. Dale Bredesen about the importance of metabolic switching for preventing Alzheimer's. I'm starting to feel like fasting, metabolic switching, glucose management are the keys to preventing everything. Would you agree on that when it comes to cancer?
Yeah, I think there's more even that can be involved, but definitely your diet is so important. And for me personally, when I was diagnosed with my terminal stage 4 lung cancer, non-smokers lung cancer, which all the doctors were like, oh, you're one of the unlucky ones, I had to take a long, hard look at how I was treating my body with what I put into it. And I wasn't just unlucky. I have a metabolic genetic mutation, but this is something that I developed over time because I feel that I wasn't treating my body well. I thought I had the healthy standard American diet with whole grains and non-fat dairy, lean meats, things like that. But I just wasn't looking deep enough, and I had a lot of stress, and I had quite the alcohol enthusiasm, drinking a bottle of wine a night to deal with that. So when I finally put my health first and saying, my body is screaming out. It's decided it doesn't even want to be alive anymore. I had 6 to 8 months to live. Let's make those 6 to 8 months exactly what my body needs and to start paying attention to it. And these days, it's not about trying to live as long as possible, but trying to have the best life that I possibly can. And I cannot do that without paying attention to my body and other healing factors like fasting, stress reduction, mindfulness, medication, breath work. All these things for me personally work so important in conjunction. But it all started with diet.
So where do you go when you hit that moment where you've been given this horrific diagnosis? How do you go from the fear of that moment into empowerment and seeing that there's so many aspects of your lifestyle that need to change?
Oh, Mindy, you hit it on the head, that fear and that urgency. And learning, I just turned 40. I thought I was healthy. It was non-smokers lung cancer, so something I never would have expected. And the first place that I went, which I'm embarrassed to admit, is I'm going to die well. I'm going to listen to my doctors when they say I'm terminal. I will be terminal. And my one goal was to make Brad proud of me, my doctors proud of me by dying well. And thank God that only lasted for about 5 days. I was diagnosed on a Monday. That weekend, we went off. I started reading all my cancer books, what's out there. And I realized some people do survive. And I think that if anybody could survive, I could do it. And I have a little too much self-esteem that way, maybe. But I decided I know my body better than any of my doctors do. I know how I feel better than any scan. And I'm just going to focus on that, try to live a good life during however much time I have left. I could be hit by a car tomorrow. And that became my goal, my quality of life. I wasn't trying, maybe deep down I was hoping for a little cancer outcome. But really what I was hoping for was a good quality life. And I've had that, and that's the most important thing. But those books that I was reading is what brought up how a dietary change is very often the first thing that happens in people with radical remissions or unexpected improvements. Dr. Kelly Turner talks about this in her book, Radical Remission. So I was like, okay, from now on, that weekend, the first weekend after my diagnosis, I decided not to put anything into my body that wasn't actively healing.
Okay, I got to interrupt this video because I have a free guide for you so you can master fasting. It's called A Beginner's Guide to a Fasting Lifestyle. And all you've got to do is click here and you can jump right in. Yeah, and when I travel around the country, I always, when I'm in airports and I'm watching the stress people are under, I'm watching the foods they're eating, it breaks my heart. And I think, why don't more people have cancer? Why don't more people realize that if they change the way they ate, they would think different, they would sleep different, they would feel different? To your point, Brad, when did we get off that path? I think we just assume food is food, and we don't know that it either is going to build disease or build health. I have no idea how we got where the awareness on food got so bad.
You can see it, though, over the last 70 years because it tracks with all these chronic diseases like diabetes, Alzheimer's or type 3 diabetes, cancer. They're all going up as our food production and system is going way down.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, again, is one of the reasons I got so excited about fasting. And the fun part of this story that I get to tell, and I don't think I've actually... No, I told it in Fast Like a Girl. I put it in the end notes. It was a really important story for me to put out there. And that was that a month before Lanny passed, maybe a month or two before this patient that I had walked this journey with, before she passed, she actually asked me about fasting. And she said, what do you know about fasting? And it was about that time that Dr. Osumi's work that was coming out on autophagy, and we were learning that in a fasted state, the cells repaired themselves. And I remember turning to her and saying, I don't know anything about fasting, but I'm going to find out for you.
Wow.
And then
origin story.
Right? And then 2 months later, she passed, and it propelled me to figure this part of the puzzle out, because she had done everything. She had changed the way she ate. She had changed the beauty products. She had totally handled her stress. She had done everything. She had gone to every alternative doctor. She literally turned 3 months into 11 years. But one thing that we didn't do was fasting. So talk a little bit about where fasting fits in to the cancer journey, because it's something I've never been completely able to answer for myself.
Wow. So I had no idea on this at the beginning until I ran across Dr. Walter Longo's research out of USC. And he focused originally on longevity, but the cancer science has become incredible that if you fast 3 days before you start your chemo, it's more effective before radiation. And that's when I really discovered the power of it, because I had 2 rounds of brain storage radiations. Sorry, both those rounds caused some aphasia from my brain injury, which you're hearing now. But 2 rounds for 2 tumors each in Hong Kong, same hospital, same radiologist. The first round, I was just beginning my cancer journey, and I was still eating healthy. I went in, and it was devastating. It was 3 weeks on the couch, sweating, crying, vomiting.
Wow.
Couldn't work, obviously. The next session, 6 months later, less than 6 months, I went in again, walked home from the hospital on a Friday, went back to work on a Monday, felt amazing. And the only difference is the second time I fasted, water fasted 3 days before and about a day after. And it was profound. And sometimes I worry that it was, made my radiation so effective that's why I have this brain injury now, the brain radiation necrosis. Honestly,
they didn't need as much.
Exactly. And really, most people don't live as long as I do after having this radiosurgery. People just didn't know enough about it. But now more and more people are living long enough to get it. And so the science is coming out. And candidly, the fact that I am as functional as I am, my neuro-oncologist told me just at my last session that if he showed my MRIs to 10 different doctors, all 10 would say I'm a vegetable. I shouldn't be able to walk or talk. And this was right after I'd come back from a solo trip to Indonesia to get my yoga teacher training. So I do have some dysfunction, but it just shows that your scans, your doctors, they don't know everything. And I believe that my fasting, my stress reduction techniques are what causes this neuroplasticity, where my mind can still function, even if it looks like mush in the scans.
I think this is just like a good time to throw in, like, your viewers are all familiar probably with the ketogenic diet and fasting. And that basically the reason that this works for cancer patients is the idea that cancers, more than other cells, want glucose. So the higher your blood glucose is, you're basically feeding your cancer cells. So obviously you can't completely cut the glucose out of your system, but if you can go on a ketogenic diet or fast especially, you're basically taking away a lot of the fuel sources for cancer. And that's the background. That's the science behind it.
And your listeners know that ketosis, the state of ketosis, is not the same as the ketogenic diet, eating bacon, meat. It can be fasting. It can be reached so many different ways. And it's that ketosis that's so healing.